This is Troy Graham from Oz Development. We are going to go ahead and get started with the webinar. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items before we jump in. Everybody on the phone is currently muted, but we definitely want to hear from you and questions that you have as we go today. So please use the chat feature through GoToWebinar, and we'll make sure that we get to and answer everybody's questions as we go today. So to start off, we're here today. We're going to talk a little bit about some of your choices and trade-offs for mobility in your NetSuite warehouse. And what we're really looking for is how do we optimize NetSuite, the physical process that's happening, what are some examples of companies, some of the things that they've done to be successful in their warehouse. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. We'll take a look at the agenda here. And John Than is with me. John, if you can move forward that slide for me.
Sorry. Thank you. There's the agenda.
Perfect. Thanks, John.
I don't pause.
So we'll do some introductions in a second. As I mentioned, we want to show and talk about some customer successes, some examples of companies that are leveraging the NetSuite platform and mobile solutions inside of their operations. We're also going to talk about some industry best practices and how, as a NetSuite user, we can leverage those best practices, as well as some of the trade-offs within the different mobility options that we have, sort of pros and cons of some of the approaches that can be taken. We will also show an example of a solution live, kind of in action with NetSuite. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with some Q&A, some questions and answers from the team that's on the call today. So again, my name is Troy Graham from Oz Development. I have been working with NetSuite now for just about 10 years, and I work in essentially our sales team here. So I've worked with, at this point, hundreds of different companies using NetSuite and working to try and optimize their operations. And John, if you don't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
Sure. Thanks, Troy. My name's John Than. I'm one of the principals and the founder of Appficiency. We are ex-NetSuite expert administration and expert solution providers. We are an SDN NetSuite partner as well. And we've been working with NetSuite customers for, I don't know, better part of 7 years. We've worked with hundreds and hundreds of different types of customers with wide varying requirements for warehouse solutions.
And just to add to John's introduction, I mean, from my view, John is one of the most knowledgeable people in the NetSuite space. And the thing that always really impresses me in working with John is how we can look at a business problem, a business process, and how do we apply technology to solve that problem. And John's got a lot of experience doing that, but I think it's just also his nature, his DNA to really solve a problem and really understanding how technology can help a business improve a process. So we're really glad to have John here with us today as well. So thanks for joining us, John, and doing this with us.
Thanks, Troy.
Great. So quick introduction as far as the companies go. Oz Development, we are an SDN partner, so we essentially provide some extensions to the NetSuite platform. And as you've heard already, they're really logistics focused. Key highlights, I think, as far as our business goes, over the 10 years that we've been working with NetSuite, we now currently work with over 640 NetSuite companies. So again, lots of domain experience, lots of NetSuite-specific experience, whether you are a current NetSuite customer or maybe somebody that's in the process of migrating to the NetSuite platform. The other thing that I always like to highlight is we use some of the logos and on this slide here because we work with some companies that are shipping thousands of orders a day and have pretty high volume warehouse operations, as well as some smaller companies that might have sort of unique process that they're trying to streamline without a very high order volume. So we're kind of working with a pretty wide range of NetSuite companies. And John?
Thanks, Troy. You know, our story is a little different, but similar in many ways. We work with a wide variety of NetSuite customers. Appficiency itself is a newer company, but we've been working with NetSuite customers for many years, and we've seen a wide variety of customer requirements. We've seen a wide variety of customer challenges, everything from simple things like, you know, certain staff can only handle certain types of direction where other staff are experts in the system. How do you tailor the system in the right way for both of those types of folks? Mobility and barcoding play a big part in all of that. It's one of the great efficiencies that you can gain in NetSuite when you put on an application that can really take barcoding from NetSuite native capabilities to sort of a stylized and streamlined application that suits the warehouse, all the staff involved in anything having to do with basically receiving and moving product out the door. So we're excited as well to be here today. It's really it's a real different perspective we think that we bring with Oz here to be able to help you understand how NetSuite interacts with barcoding, with other applications, just in general, how you streamline your warehouse and what kind of choices and trade-offs you make all the time because of what NetSuite does or may not do in certain areas. Troy, I'll pass it back to you.
Great. So ultimately, you know, at a high level, what we're hoping to answer for folks today, and we get this question a lot, and it's kind of why we put together this webinar today, was maybe I'm new to barcoding, or I've been using NetSuite for a while, and I want to take advantage of some barcoding. So simply understanding what can I do in NetSuite, what can I do in NetSuite, where does a partner like us and the Appficiency team make some sense? What type of devices can I use? Can I use an iPod? Can I use an iPhone? Can I use a heavy-duty Motorola scanner? Also talk about some real-world examples of savings, right? Because ultimately we're trying to improve efficiency, improve accuracy. What's some examples of what some other customers have seen as they make that transition? As well as what sort of environments will the solutions work in? So not so much physical environments, but different types of companies, from, you know, B2C distribution companies or retail companies to more wholesale type distribution companies. But what are the typical environments that people are leveraging barcode scanning in? And again, who's using this type of technology today? What types of users? What types of businesses? And how are they taking advantage of that? So we'll try to show you some live examples that you can see, but also talk about some companies that have been using this type of technology for quite a while with their NetSuite system. One example of that is a company called LionL Racing. And the reason I love to use LionL Racing in a discussion like this is LionL as a company makes, or LionL Racing, excuse me, makes these die-cast replica NASCAR race cars, and they're the official supplier for NASCAR. So they have a very high volume B2C portion of their business. A number of years ago, the company that made these replica race cars merged with LionL, which is the toy train business that most of us are somewhat familiar with. And so what they did is they took a very high volume B2C business in the cars, merged that with primarily a very high volume, very seasonal wholesale business on the train side, and they actually not only merged the companies, but they physically merged their warehouses. And so what ended up happening was they now had a workflow or a business process where some orders were very large wholesale orders and required certain level of accuracy and packing, and we'll talk about some of the requirements they had there in a minute, with a warehouse where, nope, I need to go pick 1, 2, 3, 4 items at a time and pick hundreds and thousands of orders a day. So they had a fairly complex distribution model because of the multiple sales channels they had. But they also had quite a few requirements from their big wholesale customers. So, for example, they had more and more companies that were coming to them saying, we need advanced ship notices. I need EDI connectivity for those ASNs and those advanced ship notices. So ultimately, they deployed mobile technology, and they have a few different paths in which orders can come down, depending on the worker that I am, depending on the type of order that I'm picking. If it's a wholesale order, for example, it's going to work a user through the warehouse to pick a big order. At the end of that order, it's going to generate SSCC labels for printing out an ASN. Now, I may be another picker in that warehouse on the retail team, and I'm going through the warehouse, and I want to be able to pick 10 small race car orders in one pass through the warehouse. So here we took two businesses, essentially, that function very, very differently, but they're all leveraging NetSuite now. And we take those warehouse staff that, as you can imagine with the train business and the car business, there's some seasonality around the holidays. The volumes really spike up. So they may be bringing in temporary help, and they need to make sure that whether it's their big retailers or retail customers are getting the right product, and they can't have a cost of labor that is really, really cutting out all of their particular profit margin. So to me, LionL is a great example because it's complex, it's multi-channel, it's high volume, and ultimately their order accuracy and their warehouse efficiency is very, very high. And everything lives inside of NetSuite. There's no external database for warehouse operations. Everything is real-time connected to their NetSuite platform.
So I'm going to back up with some of the things Troy just said on LionL on a more broad level. When you look at how NetSuite customers are executing in their applications against some of these challenges, when you don't have barcoding, or when you don't have a specific barcoding solution, or if you're working with a 3PL that's doing it for you, you realize several different challenges. And what we've found in the customer base, when you actually look at how they're executing things in NetSuite, we see that manufacturers have a lot of cost inaccuracies. And it's because barcoding is tedious in a native environment in NetSuite. So what a lot of customers do is they'll do a backflush, or they won't do the issuance of material. And because of that, they lose some inventory control. And unfortunately for a lot of them, what they don't realize is that when you do things after the fact in NetSuite, your cost inaccuracy spirals out of control too. The same is true for serialization and lot-controlled inventory. And when you're using work in process, this type of inaccuracy can get very, very large, especially across bills of material where there's multiplicative impact of a cost inaccuracy at a lowest level component. So for manufacturers, this is a big deal. We saw one manufacturer with a cost inaccuracy that kind of showed up on the balance sheet of north of $1 million just because of a unit of measure problem. Those are the types of things that go away when you go to barcoding. The application and the gun action itself simplify it. So there's only so many choices to be made. It's not like a normal NetSuite screen where there's many fields and it doesn't really prompt you where your data is wrong or where your data is not quite right. One of the best applications, which is why we're doing this webinar with Troy and Oz, is that their application prevents those types of errors in the beginning. It's very obvious on the in the user interface on the gun what they're doing, and therefore anyone in the warehouse or shop floor has the ability to see the downstream result of what they're doing right away. For distributors, you see a whole bunch of other problems. You see ASN and case pack. What this means is you have two choices with NetSuite. You can either stock your inventory in 2 or 3 different ways for the same product. Technically, it's the same lipstick, or it's the same shirt, or it's the same sporting good, and but you buy it in a certain way. You might buy it in an inner pack and outer pack. You might buy it in case packs. You might buy it in what are called blister packs, etc. And so you need to know how many blister packs you have in inventory, and you also need to know how many eaches you have in inventory. Unfortunately, NetSuite won't tell you that. So you need multiple barcodes to support the same product if you wanted to stock it, receive it, and deal with it in different ways. Most people will do their ordering, so their external activity with vendors and customers, they'll do that with some multiplicative values, so a case pack or an outer pack, that kind of thing, with customers and vendors. Whereas internally, they really look at their inventory in eaches, and they plan their demand in eaches as well. Because of that, you need multiple barcodes, and really you're talking now about a customization in NetSuite. So a good mobile solution will handle both of those things for you. You know, there's inventory movement is also one of the things that's, you know, for the most part largely ignored in native NetSuite. You can make those movements, but they're left up to operator expertise. And you know, what we see is that you know, that's not always the best way to do it. So being able to do a transfer of inventory is one thing. Being able to transfer a chunk of inventory, which is typically how people do it, they'll wrap it up, put it on skid, move the skid, or they'll license plate the thing and move it in one shot. They don't want to have to break it down just to find out what's in it to move it. They want to be able to put that somewhere, the composition of what they've decided to move as a chunk in the warehouse, and then move it with one action. And that's the kind of thing that good warehouse solution will give you. In retail, because of the high volume and SKU management, this becomes even more critical. You know, it's possible in a retail environment to change your UPCs from time to time. And so as those barcodes change, you now have a major change management problem with NetSuite because it's a real-time system. If you make a change in one area, it impacts everything all at once. So these are the types of challenges that we see where a good barcoding solution, a good mobile solution in the warehouse can really fix a lot of that. And that's what this webinar hopefully is going to give you some idea of when you see it both in demonstration, but through these examples that Troy is talking about and I'm discussing as well from our customer base, it really does make a big difference to the streamlining of operations and accuracies that end up in the cost side because NetSuite's one system. Troy, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so to talk about another customer example, and one of the reasons I like using this example so much is Factorymation actually sells warehouse automation equipment, accessories, components that are used in high-volume distribution centers. So conveyor controllers and lights and things of that nature are what they sell. So their business is automation. But what they ran into is their business was growing, and they were actually having some challenges with order accuracy. So as a business process owner, their problem was, hey, we're having challenges with getting the right products in the hands of our customer. They were also having challenges with inventory visibility. They were selling things that they didn't have. There were other things that they had in stock that their website didn't think they had, so they weren't selling certain products. And the final one that really was a business discussion was, we want to differentiate ourselves in the market, and we want to deliver on a 2-day guarantee to our customers. So we want to be able to reach everybody in the United States in 2 days with our products, again, as a competitive differentiator. Now, Factorymation had migrated over to the NetSuite platform. They had implemented the NetSuite e-commerce solution. But what had happened in that process is the warehouse staff had really lost some enthusiasm, some credibility, some energy, and really it came down to something John said a few minutes ago. There were too many clicks for them in the warehouse to get things out the door, and there wasn't enough systematic accuracy driven through their process. So what they came to us to do was implement a barcode solution so that they could take a staff that didn't know every product in and out, didn't know where it was in the warehouse, you know, kind of as the back of their hand, and make those workers more efficient, make sure they were shipping the right product, which would allow them to have greater throughput in their warehouse. By having the barcode solution as part of their NetSuite implementation, it gave their sales team, their finance team, everybody greater access to what's happening with these orders even visibility to see, hey, we're behind on picking orders today, as an example. And one of the things that I really like about Factorymation is Steve Smithwick, who was the primary project lead when we worked with him. About 10 days after they had gone live with OzLINK, he came back to us and he said, you know what you guys did for us is you improved morale. And I thought that was a really interesting approach to it. But as the person responsible for their warehouse, his team was used to, getting beat up a bit about speed of order delivery, order accuracy. And now all of a sudden, through the use of the mobile scanners, that team was more efficient, they were much more effective, and it actually boosted morale. And that obviously helped bring the energy up in the facility and continue to have everybody working together. So I thought it was a great example of, here's some business problems. Nobody came to Steve and said, hey, we've got a barcoding problem, but they came to him with some business problems that ultimately were solved through the use of some barcoding technology. So one of the things that we wanted to touch on is, what are the things that I want to look at? So if I hear those business problems about order accuracy, efficiency, I want to understand how productive my employees are. Those are my business problems. But as a project owner, what are the things that I need to start considering if I'm going to look at a warehouse mobility solution? And so we've got some things that we want to talk about. And we also want to let people know that you can approach those in a granular fashion. Sometimes when people start to think about using barcode scanning, they think about, I need to change my entire operation to support barcode scanning. We actually don't. We could pick a problem, and that problem may be in my manufacturing process, capturing serial numbers or issuing components for work orders. You can tackle a piece of your business. You don't have to take on the entire operation if you didn't want to. But we would ask and we would encourage people to really spend some time and think about what is our objective. Is it accuracy, performance, missing inventory, driving down costs? But have some definition there. And then secondarily to that is mapping your warehouse processes by sales channels. Going back to my LionL example from earlier, depending who you talk to at LionL, some people really talk about that retail channel and high speed, high quantity of orders, and their focus is that model. While the other side of that warehouse that works on those wholesale orders, they really talk about things like vendor requirements for SSCC labels, building pallets, generating bills of lading. So making sure that you look at the business as a whole and understanding that you may have different fulfillment models and different fulfillment requirements based on your sales channels. Third is one of the primary questions we will get asked is, either my items don't come in with a barcode on them, or during manufacturing I have to produce a barcode. But start to think about, where do I need a barcode generated? And when we say a barcode generated, it's a label that identifies that product. So you can use a mobile scanner to print a label when you receive inventory, when you're building a work order, for example. And it may be something that is applicable only to a portion of your inventory. Some things might come in with a barcode, others may not. But start to identify, where in my workflow do I need to generate some barcoded labels. And then lastly, look at the physical layout, and how does that physical layout map to NetSuite? For example, I may have a QC location that's in the same building as my primary warehouse, but it's segmented inside of NetSuite. Or we've got a company that sells sporting goods, and so they might sell lacrosse helmets and cleats and things of that nature, but they also happen to sell these big lacrosse nets. And those lacrosse nets, because they're heavy and bulky, they store those in a certain area of their warehouse, and they have some business rules about, let's pick those lacrosse nets last because they're heavy and we don't want to move them. But start to look at your warehouse, the physical layout of that warehouse, from a 1,000-foot level, not necessarily walking down an aisle, but start to build a map of, where's my inventory physically, and then how should people be walking through that warehouse to make sure that they're efficiently picking the items needed for a particular sales order. Other things, and John will talk about a number of these as we look in the demonstration, think about from a NetSuite setup perspective and enhancements to the core NetSuite platform. What are some of the things that we're going to hear about and be thinking about is, label printing. I'm going to hear about all the time where we've got a requirement. Certainly EDI drives lots of barcode, either scanning requirements and or labeling requirements, even custom packing slip printing kind of falls into that ASN and EDI category. A UCC label is basically an ASN-related label or a barcoded ID label that can be generated as part of the process. Bulk inventory movement, as John said. If I've got pallets of things where I don't want to scan 20 boxes, I want to be able to scan one barcode and move 20 boxes. That can be accomplished through mobile solutions. FIFO picking, first in, first out inventory management comes along with lot-based inventory. If I need to make sure my oldest products get out the door first, or I may even run into a situation where if a product doesn't have enough time left on its expiration date, I want to stop the picker from even being able to fulfill that for my customer. And the last one, manufacturing, travelers. If I need to be able to monitor steps in a process, I want to know that inventory has been picked in relationship to a work order versus that work order has already been built and assembled and inventory is available, is again a sort of common area where we can look for improving the native sort of out-of-the-box functionality of NetSuite. So one more thing I'll just touch base on is, and then turn it back over to John for a bit here, is there are options in barcode scanning. So it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all. And that really, to me, comes down to two categories. One is, what business process or business workflow do I need to solve? And we talked about that earlier. That's a key thing to identify if we're starting to think about mobile warehouse automation. Do I need replenishment? Do I deal with work orders or not? Do I have a unique business process that maybe isn't a standard NetSuite workflow that I need to be able to support? So from an OzLINK perspective, we have OzLINK Mobile Pro, which you'll see a representative device on the left-hand side of the screen here. That supports a certain set of NetSuite features. And on the right-hand side, you'll see OzLINK Mobile Enterprise. And the way that we've built these solutions is if I need customization, if I need a custom workflow, OzLINK Mobile Enterprise gives me that capability. And OzLINK Mobile Pro is more of a inside the box, here's a set of features that are supported. And by building it as a solution that's a native NetSuite bundle like that, it's able to keep cost very, very reasonable for companies that maybe are newer to mobile automation. All right, John. So I know you've got some really good workflow examples here, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Troy. So just for everyone's sake, we're about halfway through our time together today. I want to make sure that we're going to spend just about 5 minutes understanding what the flow of things really look like in NetSuite, and then we're going to do about 15 minutes of demo, and then we'll have 10 minutes left over for wrap-up and questions, okay? So what you're seeing here in front of you is really 3 swim lanes. And what I've done is I've categorized it for you with the physical world, what's actually happening in real life physically. And then where does mobile barcode capture come in? And how does that interact with the actual NetSuite transactions and records in the system? So you can see a couple interesting things here. If we look at the receiving process through fulfillment, the goods actually arrive at your warehouse. In a further slide, we'll talk about how they get to the warehouse in the first place. But you can see that the goods arrive at the warehouse. Well, now you have the job to scan and receive them. Then you have the job to put away. Now, technically in NetSuite, the PO is what you're scanning to receive, and the ASN is usually some kind of custom record or some other kind of custom construct in NetSuite, since NetSuite doesn't have an ASN concept natively. If it's an RMA, then you would be working off the RMA exactly like as if it was a PO. The end result is the scan and receive allows you to do that in an intermediate step, all within the barcode application itself, all within Oz Mobile Pro, and then you can go ahead and deliver the final item receipt either prior to put away or after put away. And both of these are very important abilities so that you're able to decide whether you need a quarantine process, a check process before you go into sort of final goods hitting your balance sheet, as well as, of course, hitting your actual warehouse acceptance floor. So the next one would be to then move the goods around the warehouse, whether you're doing a manufacturing floor or whether you're doing a distribution floor. Goods are always moving around. There's a lot of reasons to move them, and so we need to scan those affected goods as the actual transaction or the actual physical movement takes place in the warehouse. And we see that so on and so forth. When we get through the fulfillment, well, now we need to pick. And picking is a whole set of processes for some customers. You don't have to swallow everything. You can do some parts and you can lean out exactly the changes you want to make in a layered or a step-by-step fashion using a good tool like Oz Mobile Pro. If you don't do that, if you do that without it, then you're going to have everyone trying to fit into the NetSuite specific process here. And the truth is, a lot of businesses have their own specific process on picking that they would like to execute. Whether that's directed pick, whether that's wave picking or some other types of methods, it's the same action that happens from a mobile device perspective, which is to allow you a step in the application to mimic the physical world, and a differentiated step to allow the update to NetSuite to happen when appropriate at real time, or when appropriate to suspend that before it gets to NetSuite. And that, of course, gives you the flexibility to match your real world, your physical world process much more closely than if you had to just execute against native NetSuite. Similar is true for packing and shipping, and we're going to get to see some of this today. You can see that every NetSuite transaction generates its own barcode right down below here. And so, of course, as you go through that packing and shipping process, you're going to end up with labels, whether that's shipping labels printed on thermal printers or Zebra printers. You're going to see that jump directly out from the mobile application right through to the physical world, where you actually have a label in hand, printed and ready to be slapped onto the box. Whereas all the time what's happening here in NetSuite with the warehouse movement and the shipping calculation and other details, NetSuite is kind of sitting there waiting for the end result. And so that ends up with an end result down here, which gives you sort of the final fulfillment or the final shipment record in NetSuite, which allows you to proceed through with billing. For manufacturers, we did promise to talk a little bit about it. So when you have an advanced ship notice, the factory receives your original purchase order at point of readiness for shipping, or at point of readiness to deliver an ASN. That ASN can come into NetSuite, and of course the pink boxes here define how these would need to be custom processes, and different customers do this in different ways. Some do it with a custom record, some do it with leaving it entirely in the mobile device's hands. Others will create, one broad custom record or multiple custom records for each line of their purchase order. It all depends on your stylized process, but the ASN is a necessary device for the factory to let, or the vendor to let you know that something is coming. The same is true, of course, on your customer side, to let them know that you have something coming to them. All of these can be achieved with a variety of different custom processes against NetSuite. But as you build custom processes, in fact, your need for barcoding and accuracy goes even greater, because custom processes in NetSuite typically don't have the enforcement that the native does. And so because of that, a mobile pro device or a mobile and barcoding solution is sort of the last mile that really makes the big difference, whether that process becomes sort of a jagged thing or you're just trying to keep up, or whether it's something that you really execute with a nice, with a nice flick, sort of step 1, 2, 3, and done. The mobile device helps you do that, and barcoding allows you to keep that accurate. So without much further ado, I'm going to go over into the demo, and as I switch screens, Troy, feel free to add in any comments if you'd like. We're going to flip over to NetSuite in my Chrome browser, and get the correct screen sharing.
Yeah, I think, John, the only thing I would sort of echo there is your process may be different. So John's going to show some examples today, but keep in mind the way your NetSuite's configured, the way your workflow works may be a little bit different, and that's okay. What we're going to try to drive towards are really proven industry standard processes. So we're not going to show you every process today, but kind of give you an idea of some of the things that are possible, I think.
Thanks, Troy. So for those of you, everyone here either has NetSuite or is evaluating NetSuite, so you know full well it can take a long time to show various parts of NetSuite. What I'd like to do is to help people understand sort of where barcoding really fits in and where a mobile device can really fit into the entire process. Because for most people, it's great to talk about it and conceptualize it, but to see it in action is a different story. So what you'll see on my screen is both a pop-up which has the Motorola emulator here, so we can actually see what's going to happen in real life as if I was holding the device, and then another tab or another window where you can see my NetSuite home dashboard. And Troy, just keep me honest with the screens. If there's any lag, please let me know.
I will.
Thank you. So what you're seeing is I've set up mine to reflect a little bit more of the details I care about in the process, especially with OzLINK Mobile Pro. You get to see that they have custom dashboards already for you, and so you can go to your OzLINK overview page and have it set up with all the details you need. The directions and examples, the instructions are right in there. If you need to do an assigned bin count, you can start off that process right inside NetSuite and then have that executed in the mobile device. So that's pretty exciting. There's a real direct link between what you do in your NetSuite system and what you know is going to hit the floor on the mobile devices as well. So we're going to start by taking a sample scenario. Our sample scenario in this case is a bunch of products that we want to order for the winter time. These would be skis, ski goggles, and ski poles. Everything you need to hit the slopes this winter. I know it's probably not cold enough for everyone to start thinking about that, but in Canada it is. So what you'll see here, I'm going to start by calculating my demand plan. So a standard buyer or standard planner on the inventory side is going to come into NetSuite and follow these types of actions. If they don't do it in NetSuite, then they might do it in an Excel spreadsheet. They might do it in another application that handles demand planning. Either way, they're going to end up with some numbers. And you'll see that what we've done here is I'm just looking at the ski equipment. And you can use NetSuite in all kinds of nice ways. I like to keep my screens nice and tidy so that people can see exactly what we're talking about. So we're going to plan all three of these things. I'm going to plan the skis, the ski poles, and the ski goggles. Now, this is not a demonstration on demand planning, but I have some sales orders out there with expected ship dates of sometime in the winter or sometime around Christmas time. And because of the lead times to acquire these goods, I'm going to end up with a demand plan that suggests certain quantities at certain times to support the expected demand that I see. So whether you have future dated orders, you have future buys or deals planned with retailers, that kind of thing, this is a similar process you would use. Again, whether in NetSuite or otherwise, that's just fine. If I look at my goggles, I can see that I'm planning on making one large buy, and I have some ticky-tack back order right now that I have to deal with. So what I'm looking at is having in November a large buy of 1,600 goggles ready for the Christmas season, or perhaps for Black Friday. If I'm looking at my skis, I see a slightly different picture where I see an ascending quantity, and we have some pre-orders already as well. So this is the type of demand that you might see out in your system, and ultimately, and the same is true for the goggles. and the poles, excuse me. So what we're going to do is from here we're going to take it to generating immediately our supply plan. And that supply plan is just going to go ahead and generate the necessary purchase orders in sync with the timing to receive based upon lead times and days of the week that we order on preferences in NetSuite. And so we just need to come in and mark off all our supply plans. That'll nicely take us through the process to generate the supply plans with planned orders. You can report on that, you can view it, but from here a lot of people will simply go into an order item screen, which will allow them to see what they need to order and when. And so we can see here for the Boston location that we're planning on ordering from Merlin 2 different times here, in this case both in October, to meet our 11/1 receipt dates, and we can see the total quantity being requested to be ordered. We can break it out more by dates and different replenishment methods. Like I said, we're not going to do a lot of discussion to that with NetSuite, but we're going to end up with a variety of purchase orders when we execute and submit this. We'll go ahead and submit it, and it'll generate those purchase orders. What I've done is I've given you some pre-purchase orders here. So we've created a search. This is the type of thing that an experienced NetSuite user, buyer, someone on the warehouse manager side type thing should be looking at on a regular basis to understand their inventory. And you can see here that I have my ski goggles, I have my skis, and I have my ski poles. Each one of these items is broken out by what do I have on purchase order, how many have I actually received of that purchase order, and how many do I have on sales order. And you can see, since I have no other quantity on hand, the goggles, I've received 39 of my order on 100. 39 have already been immediately committed to that first sales order. The next sales order in sequence would be the would get any overflow should I order enough to satisfy that demand. And how did I get that inventory in? Skis is a similar scenario here where I can see I have a variety of different orders, a variety of different sales orders that need to be supported, and there's already purchase orders out there in the system to do that with. So now we come to taking a look at how we can do this with mobile. From here, you have 2 choices. You can receive orders, and as goods arrive at the dock, they can go ahead and receive the order, and just by clicking on it, they can scan the order that comes in. It should be tagged on the box. If it's not, of course, they can just do a flat-out search and see all the open types of orders or products that are available. If they can get a barcode, or if they can get the barcode from the order, then we can look and see that particular order to be picked up. And sure enough, here we see that purchase order in NetSuite, and we see that there's 61 remaining of the ski goggles, and this PO also happens to have 37 remaining of the skis. So you have a couple options at this point. If you're scanning the actual product in, then you would pick up the UPC, and the gun would scan it in for you, just like how I've done. Now I can receive all 61. I can do an optimistic receipt, or I can do a count and start going through it. I can do multiple receipts if it comes in multiple boxes. So let's pretend they've managed to generally put about 30 in each box. So I do 130 and I do another 31. Once I've done both, the system's smart enough to prompt me that I have none remaining. I've received 61. And I've only done the sort of the first line of the purchase order in this case. You'll notice that there's a location button here, which is already predefined for me based upon my login. So it knows I'm in Boston. It doesn't have to ask me. I don't have to put those details in on every transaction in NetSuite. The beauty of all of this is it only focuses on the activities that I need to execute the action with accuracy. And so that's what has happened here. So we can add that to the paper tape. We can go back. We can finish receiving the rest of this thing. We can easily see what we've received and what we haven't, and we can go ahead and finish that. And again, if I'm going to the next product, I pick up the UPC by scanning it. If I wish I had a little dinging, I could do that with my mouth, and then we would actually go ahead and scan it. And perhaps it's in one box. We receive all 37, and you'll notice now the system is going forward and asking me, okay, you received the entire order. Are you ready to save this? Should you have different preferences on in the system could behave differently, such as over-acceptance. So some vendors love to ship more than you ask for. Others don't ship enough. The Mobile Pro device well done like this has the ability to handle both settings in NetSuite and automatically flow with that process here. Go ahead and take your big finger and hit save, and you've generated an item receipt in NetSuite. It's all real time. It directly impacts the transaction you're working with. There's no tie back you have to worry about. It's immediate. If I look at my search in NetSuite and I go ahead and refresh my page, I get to see that my purchase order immediately already has 100 that have come in, and I get, in fact, my purchase order dropped off my screen because it's now fully received as one of my filters that I have on it. But I can see that the allocation went directly to the order that's first in line. And again, now you can talk about allocation. Now you understand that once the receipt comes in, now you have the option to say, okay, if NetSuite's going to natively commit first in, first out, I have two choices. Allow that to occur, use the order priorities and custom priority numbers to do my allocation appropriately, or put everything into do not commit status, just go ahead and receive it, and then allow NetSuite, and then I can put another customization or do something else with NetSuite. There's a variety of options that you have there to decide how to allocate those orders. But you don't have to worry about the mobile. The mobile is doing this already, and the barcode has ensured that the accuracy of the inventory on the way in. You're not going to end up thinking that you're ready to ship an order complete and you're not, and then you get dinged with a penalty because Dillard said, well, you're supposed to ship me 642, you shipped me 627, somebody miscounted, but that's a, you know, under their agreement, you have to pay a penalty. So these are saving you real money, not just by making it accurate, but making it accurate because you have service level agreements with your customers that you need to meet. The same is true on the manufacturing side if you want to take that concept and look at the fact that if you issue and the issue is light or not enough and the production has to stop for half a day while people go find new inventory because you misplanned it by a bit, that impacts your bottom line, or because you need to now, you know, because you can't rely on your accounts as well, you have to have extra inventory in stock all the time, and we all know the cost of bearing inventory daily on the books. Now the option, you have an option to do a put away. So NetSuite doesn't really sort of have a put away. It expects that when you do a receipt, you know exactly where it is and what you've done with it. So this process allows you to fit the concrete world a bit better, and allows you to go ahead and then go do a proper put away. So if you scan the barcode, if you scan the right barcode, you'll see that there's something to put away. So again, it's smart enough to look it up, tell you that in real time, that item did not have anything to put away. This item does. Okay, go ahead and you can do a put away. It's also smart enough to know what the standard bin would be for this. So you can select it on a touch screen. It's really easy, and it's prompting you that you probably want to do the put away bin 1001, where it's typically supposed to go as a preferred bin. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and put it all away, and then I go ahead and save it, and we're all done. So it's a short, succinct process to make sure the inventory gets into the right place in the warehouse. It follows the actual physical movement that occurred, and now you're ready to go on with the fulfillment side. Because of a little bit of time, I was planning on doing sort of the bulk inventory movement option, which is to look at totes and picking orders by totes. It's a beautiful feature. It's one of the very important features that NetSuite doesn't have natively, but is present in the Oz Mobile Pro device here. And you can see you can search by orders, you can multi-pick them, you can quickly define a new tote that it belongs into, and you can decide a number or you can assign a number. So a lot of rich features here which basically allow you to keep an accuracy of movement, but also now you can start seeing some real efficiencies. You can generate your own tote number, then print a label for it. All of that can happen directly from the system, or you can, if you have an existing quote that you know you're going to go into, you can go ahead and assign that in here right now. And so you can go ahead and begin picking or print the tote labels as you need to. The other option here is to do the entire fulfillment process. We did promise you to see that, so I'm going to try and wrap this up in a couple minutes, being conscious of time. But you can go ahead and pick orders. You can pick multiple orders as well, and you can search by the order number, whether or not something has a SKU. So my ski poles did not have a UPC assigned yet at the time of the order, so we're going to go ahead and ship them with a generic search too. So being able to do all three types is very important. And you can see that we can come in here and look directly for the SKU, go ahead and pick all 77, save it as picked or packed, and when you're ready to ship it, you can go ahead and do that as well. There's a variety of capabilities in the system for dealing with the various types of movements you're going to do. I mentioned the totes. There's multiple order pick. On any item lookup, you can print a label. This will go directly to your Zebra printer. You can see example just like we saw on the specific on the PowerPoint slides, and that would give you the ability to look up the item, print that item label directly from here, and then go ahead and move it. So it's not, NetSuite would allow you to print that item label as well, but it's not going to go directly to your Zebra printer. It's not going to directly have the label printed out. So instead of being 5 steps where you got to open the item, find it in NetSuite, print the label, it comes on a PDF, you got to load an Avery type paper into the printer, regular printer, and then print a label, and then go ahead and go back and stick it all on. This does it all right at the scene for you. And then, of course, typically you print labels because you're ready to move something, and so the next obvious action is right there ready for you as well. So with that, I'm going to make sure we leave a little bit of time for your questions. I know it's exciting to see the demonstrations, and there's a lot of great features in here. There's a lot of subtle things that Oz has learned over their 640 different implementations that make up this particular product one of my favorites. You know, and all the customers that we refer them or use them in, we've seen really great pickup of this type of this technology, and a real honest to God gain on productivity from it. So it's important to understand that experience does make things does get things right eventually. So it's important to understand that with your partner you pick. But from our perspective as administrators of NetSuite, for many of our customers, you know, we just want customers to take a look at understanding that the way NetSuite is really just the backbone. It provides the backbone transactions. You can now choose a partner to take it to the next level.
Great.
So with that, I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint, and I'll let Troy kind of take us a little further along with that. Let me just do some magic with the screen.
John, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I was hoping, if you don't mind, maybe go down to either slide 18 or 19, and I've got a couple of questions I want to throw out there. And we'll share this PowerPoint deck with anybody, so if they want to look at any of these case studies, we can do that. Just a couple of questions that have come up I want to address real quickly, and then we can certainly answer others after the meeting. But somebody had asked a question in regard to multiple locations, and can I leverage something like a Mobile Pro across many locations if I've got either different physical locations or maybe you know, 2 locations defined within the same building? And the answer to that is absolutely. And basically the way OzLINK is going to work is very much the same as how NetSuite works. So as a user, if I have rights and access to log into more than one location, from the mobile device I can change the location that I'm working in. So that sort of location support is all driven based on my NetSuite login role and rights. Another question, and John, this may be better answered by you than me, but the question come in, you had mentioned earlier, you know, using case packs and using different sort of units of measure for items. And the question was, how does that get defined? How do I tell NetSuite that, you know, I've got a case of 24 versus an each? And maybe you could talk about that one for a minute.
Yeah, sure thing. So there's a variety of solutions to handle that type of concept. You The first and foremost, though, is that you need another way to identify what you're actually doing. And what I mean by that is, if you're using barcoding, then you need a separate barcode that is used just for the inner pack or the outer pack, depending on which way you've decided to stylize your inventory. Most people end up trying to stock in eaches, and NetSuite only has one choice on how to stock anyways. So it's probably the right default lowest level common denominator to get to. However, if you want to keep case pack in a separate warehouse, in a separate location, or even dedicated in a separate bin, this will allow you to continue with your demand planning and your supply planning appropriately at the each level, and allow you to segregate case pack and inner pack into a particular part of your warehouse, such as a specific bin or set of bins. But trying to do that manually is much different than if you have the multiple barcode option already in the barcode device. Hopefully that answered it.
Yeah, I think perfect. And there are some other questions out there, but I think just based on timing, John, I would like to give you another minute to go back one slide, and again, just sort of give people an idea of how can they leverage your expertise, and if they're facing some of these challenges, can you just talk a little bit about kind of what you guys do and how you do it?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Troy. We started Appficiency for the purpose that we realized that NetSuite application is a great, big, beautiful, customizable platform, and the problem with that is that there's no steward for it. Some of our customers have very talented staff on board, which is great. The more talented they are, the more effective we can help them with. But where they don't have talented staff, or where they've had staff turnover, sometimes the application is set a bit adrift, and people are making choices that are blind to the entire organization and to the capabilities of the system. They're making choices based upon what they need to get the job done, as they should. Our intent and our model is a shared administration model, where you have an experienced principal like either myself or one of our other principals in the U.S., working with one of our strategic business consultants as your primary admin, that help you on a shared model, manage the entire NetSuite system, give you the visibility into what other customers do in the similar situation, so you can make a better best practice type decision, or you can decide to go a different custom route, but with knowledge of why you're making that choice. So that's where we come in. A lot of times, we're brought in because the problem is really big and hairy, and there's just not a good comprehensive solution for it. And so we provide sort of a streamlined design that allows people to understand what their trade-off is as they're making their decision on design, and then, of course, optimize it all the way through in an evolution, so that at least whatever choices they've made and trade-offs they've had to make, they have the minimum impact on the downside.
Great. And again, to sort of emphasize from my 7 or so years of working with John, I don't think there's many people in the country that kind of understand how to solve a business problem with NetSuite better than you do. So for those folks that are looking for some more expertise, or maybe they're seeing part of NetSuite underutilized, or as John said, a decision that was made that's conflicting with another team, another department, I strongly encourage you to reach out, because he's a very, very educated and experienced guy on the NetSuite platform. So, John, we really, really appreciate you doing this with us and sharing your sort of background and expertise. We do have another webinar coming up. If you don't mind, just pop down to that slide 19 for me. So for any companies where you are being asked by your trading partners for ASN or advanced ship notices, typically, your big box retailers, Dick's Sporting Goods, Target, Walmart, those sorts of companies. In a few weeks, we are going to do a presentation, a webinar similar to this on that specific topic. So please come back and join us. And I think finally, if you don't have anything else, John, we'll send out the slides. We are also recording the webinar today, so we'll post that if you want to come back. But if you have any questions, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to answer those with you one-on-one. So thanks very much, and John, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Troy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thanks, everybody.